Hey, got a quick minute Latin one, so I figure I'll come back and talk to you a little bit more about verbs, right? Because just yesterday I made a video where I was talking to you guys about the personal endings, right? And how the subject of the verb governs how the verb ends, right? So it was like this. Now, this is a different verb, for example. This is the verb to weep, but the endings still apply just like they did on the verb sit. So it's still, I weep, you weep, he, she, it weeps, we weep, you all weep, they weep, right? And we've got those endings that change to tell you about that. But for those of you guys who have been reading chapters 1 and 2, and even those of you who are already going on to 3 and 4, you've probably noticed that there's another difference with your verbs. It's not just the way they end, right? Like if you look at these verbs, let me get to a better angle. There we go. These verbs, for example, right? You'll notice that they all have the same ending, but they don't all have the same vowel before their ending. That's the crucial bit I want to talk about today, because there is a thing going on there. Every verb you see in Latin, with a couple important exceptions that I'll get to later, not in this video, they're all going to have a vowel before that ending, but it's not always going to be the same one. It's going to be one of these, and there is a pattern to this. Cool. We can learn patterns, all right? So if you have any experience with like Spanish or Italian or French or any of those Romance languages, right, then you already know something about, ER, AR, IR verbs. Yeah, in Latin, we're classier than that. We have names for these things, technical names, make them sound fancy, and they're called conjugations, because you do conjugate your verbs. And we even call this one the first conjugation. Hey, how about a fancy name like that? But as big and fancy as the word first conjugation might sound, it's only called the first one so that we can denote all the verbs have are in their infinitive. So this is a verb that means to love, right? So amo would be I love, and amare is literally to love. It actually means to love. You might be thinking, okay, I don't understand why this is first conjugation. The reason it's first conjugation is because of that a right there. If there were some other letter that weren't a right there, it would not be first conjugation. And the reason why you need to know that is because then when you want that verb to be in other forms, you're going to use that a like so, right? You look at this example verb, it's like the one I showed you a moment ago or in the other video. And in front of all of these endings, I know there's not one in front of the O, but basically in front of all the endings, you get an A, all right? And that's really crucial. If you don't put an A there, you've spelled it wrong, or you might even end up accidentally writing a different verb, right? But there's not only one conjugation, there's four-ish. There's four-ish. So there's also, say, the second conjugation. When we started with sedeo yesterday, that was the second conjugation verb. Habeo means to have or to hold. It's another real common one that you're going to see real soon if you haven't already in your book, right? And you'll notice that it doesn't have an A. It's not like amo amare. It's not first conjugation because there's no A. Instead, there's an E here. I even went ahead and put the long mark above the E here because it's a nice, strong, vigorous E. And what this tells you is not just that it's second conjugation, but that when you conjugate it, what that means is you're going to use E's. Anywhere where first conjugation had an A, the second conjugation will have E's all over the place. So you'd have I have, you have, he, she, it has, etc. Okay? But there's more, right? So there's also the fourth conjugation. I use dormio for this. I don't think most of you have seen that yet, but you will soon. And obviously, if you're watching this sometime in the future, then yeah, you've seen it. It's a real simple fourth conjugation verb. It means to sleep. And you'll notice where there was an A before or an E before, now there are I's in the verb. And that I tells you that it's fourth conjugation. But more importantly, it tells you that when you conjugate, you are going to use I's, right? And so you can see an I in all of these forms, although I will say be careful because down here there's not just an I, there's also a U. Don't leave that out. You need all those letters to spell this correctly. So you have dormio, dormis, dormit, dormimus, dormitis, dormiant. Now some of you are probably saying, oh, you made a mistake. You did first conjugation, second conjugation, fourth conjugation, you missed one. I didn't miss one. I don't super like to do them in order because here's the thing. The first is easy. You see an A, use an A. Second is easy. You see an E, you use an E. Fourth is easy. You see an I, you use an I. And then there's a third, which I can never convince people that it doesn't exist just to bother you. Because here's the thing, right? When you look at a third conjugation like ago agere, super common third conjugation verb. I think you've seen it. Yeah, no, actually, I know. All of you have seen it already if you've at least started chapter 1. It means actually kind of a lot of things, but kind of most basically it means to do, okay? So ago agere, you see an E, and you might be tempted to think that it's like a second because there's an E right here. There was an E in habere. But you notice there's no E here. This E is different from the E that was in habere. It's weak. I didn't just leave the macron off because I don't like writing macrons. I left it off because there's not one. I mean, often I leave them off because I don't like writing them. But in this case, there's actually not one. And what's annoying about this is that you see an E, but you don't get to use it, or at least not in the present tense, not for what you guys are doing right now. Instead, when you conjugate ago agere, you're going to use eyes. Oh, here, let me get back a little bit. You're going to use eyes, and I know that's going to feel real dumb and real weird. You're probably going to hate it. But you know what? You got to do it anyway, especially because third conjugation verbs are real common. There's a bunch. So we have ago, ages, aget, agimos, agetis, and agunt. There's not even an I in there. It's just a U. I'm sorry. You know, if I could do something about that, I would. But I can't. That's actually how the language is. So in thirds, you get this weird, awkward thing where you're going to see an E, but you're not going to use an E. Now, I said there's 4-ish. Like, you'd think I would be done now, but there's like one other thing here. There's something called the third IO. And a real common example of that is faccio facere. I know it sounds funny. If you need to giggle about it, just giggle about it. But this is actually a super common verb. In fact, it's another one that you have already seen. So faccio facere means to do or to make. In Spanish, it's equivalent to like hacer. Super common verb. But when you look at it, you'll see that there's an I and an E. And it's a weak E. So there's an I. Looking at that, you'd think it was something like a fourth. Looking at the E, you might think it was a third or a second or something. Well, the way that they group these, the way grammarians decided to group these, is based off the infinitive. So since this infinitive looks like this infinitive, grammarians have decided it is a third conjugation. But it is also slightly different because of the I here. Ago doesn't have an I right there. But third IOs will. So they say it's a third, but it's a special third. It's a third IO. And this is how you conjugate it. Actually, when you look at it, it's not really that different from a third, right? It actually does look exactly like ago, except there's an I here that ago didn't have, and there's an I in front of the U that ago didn't have, right? It does also happen to be exactly like the fourth, where you have eyes everywhere. Oh, let me get my angle better. There we go. Where you get eyes everywhere, including here and here. So for what you need to know now, you could just know that third IOs and fourths always look the same, all right? And if you think they are the same, at least at this point, there's not going to be a consequence to that. Anyway, this video is getting a little long, but if you have questions about it, hit me up in the comments, not here in the YouTube. Well, actually, you can do it here on the YouTube, but I don't know if I'll be able to see them. But over in Google Classroom, I'll definitely be able to see them, all right? So talk to me there. Hopefully this was informative. There we go. And I know the video is a little messy, but I'm in between classes. So I'll see you guys soon. Bye.